Okay, uh, let's get started. So, good morning. So today, what I want to do is I want to just go over this proof that we kind of talked about last time because I really wrote something sloppy and yeah, the slides were not all correct, and I think there was quite a bit of confusion. So yeah, so let's just recall the problem that we spoke about last time. So remember, we were talking about this problem of coming up with a schedule of a few jobs which has a length, each of which has a length and a weight. And we want to come up with a schedule such that the sum of the weighted completion time is as small as possible. Okay, so I hope everyone remembers the problem at least. Yeah, if not the algorithm and the proof. Okay, and we said that, well, we can just apply a greedy algorithm in this case, which is that uh, I will just sort the jobs in non-increasing order of a certain ratio, which is Wi over Li. Okay. So if I permute the jobs in this ratio, then I claim that this permutation is going to be optimal in terms of the objective function that we are trying to minimize, which is the sum of weighted completion time. Okay. So that's the algorithm. And so we saw a proof which was roughly correct, but not completely correct. And also I did not address the issue. So when I did the proof, remember I assumed that all these ratios Wi over Li are distinct. But what happens if some of them might not be distinct, right? Then we will need to do a slightly different proof. Okay, so some of the students actually spelled out that proof, which also works if they're not distinct. So let's just, go over this once more and clear up everything. Okay, so everyone remembers the problem, I hope, at least. Good. So what was the main idea? And remember, as I said, that in these lectures of greedy algorithm, what my main motive is more to show you these different proof techniques rather than the problems themselves. Of course, the problems are important, but at least you should know that these are some of the proof techniques that people use when we try to argue optimality of greedy algorithms. Okay. So the first technique that we are seeing here is what we call an exchange argument. And the idea roughly is the following, that so we start with a greedy schedule. Yeah, so let's say that schedule is sigma, and now suppose this schedule is not optimal, as we always do, right? Whenever we try to prove something that this is optimal, then we start by with the assumption that, okay, assume that this is not optimal. Now if this is not optimal, then there has to be some other optimal, and I'm calling that sigma star. So with these two assumptions, now I will start with sigma star and I will produce another schedule uh, which is even better than sigma star. Yeah, and which clearly will give me a contradiction because I'm assuming that sigma star is optimal. So uska matlab hai ki there cannot be a schedule which is better than sigma star. But hey, here I give you another one which is actually right, which cannot be true, right? So that's the rough framework. So how do we prove this? So now again, assume, let's fix this. Let's fix our greedy schedule first, okay? And assume that I have named the jobs, or I have renamed the jobs in a way that that it follows the indices, it follows the sorted order of the greedy schedule. So I assume that the jobs in the greedy schedule are really J1, J2, J3 up to Jn, which means that this ratio goes on decreasing. So I'm assuming here that all the ratios are distinct, remember? So yes, so all these ratios just, they decrease as I go down from W1 over L1 to Wn over Ln. Okay, so that's how my greedy schedule looks like. Okay, and now uh, let's look at this optimal schedule, which is sigma star. Okay, now here is the thing. So remember last time I think I made the thing complicated by saying that, okay, assume karo ki assume karo ki pehle kuch hai jisme sigma or sigma star looks exactly the same, then there is this job and all that. So we don't need all that. Okay, okay, there's a question. Instead of proving another better solution for sigma star, aren't we proving that sigma is better than sigma star? See, the point is, I'm doing slightly different here. What I'm doing is that I'm saying that if sigma star is not sigma, then I will show you a contradiction. So which is also a valid proof, right? Yeah. So there are two, as we will see that when we will take the case, when the ratios are not distinct, then we will do something along what you are saying. But here I am doing an even easier thing. I'm saying that, okay, if sigma star is different than sigma, then I will just produce a contradiction. And the contradiction will be that then sigma star cannot be the optimal. There is always a better optimal. I don't know whether it's sigma or not, but the very fact that sigma star is different from sigma will lead me to a contradiction. That's all I'm saying. Okay, good. So now, what I claim about, okay, so remember that in the schedule sigma, everything is sort of arranged in this sorted order. So the indices are always increasing, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I look at the jobs from left to right, then in sigma the indices are always increasing. Okay. Now, since sigma star is not equal to sigma, that's my assumption, I claim that there has to be two consecutive jobs. Consecutive matlab two adjacent jobs, not consecutive in terms of indices. There has to be two jobs adjacent to each other in sigma star such that M, so the jobs have been scheduled as JM and JK. However, the index of JM, which is M, is actually bigger than K, which means that this is an inversion with respect to the schedule sigma. So this is all I'm claiming. Yeah, all I'm claiming is that if sigma star is not equal to sigma, then there has to be consecutive jobs or adjacent jobs such that the first of these jobs, which is JM, has to have a larger index than the second job. Okay, ये होना ही पड़ेगा, right? How do I prove this? Well, the proof is actually a single line. The single line is the following, that the only schedule where this will not happen is sigma. Okay? दुनिया में कोई भी आप और परमुटेशन उठा लीजिए जो सिग्मा नहीं है, उसमें ये होना ही पड़ेगा. There has to be two jobs which are sitting side by side such that पहले वाले का index will be larger than the second वाले का index. क्योंकि अगर ऐसा नहीं है, उसका मतलब क्या है? उसका मतलब है कि your indices are always increasing. But that's exactly your schedule sigma, right? So this is the only thing that I'm claiming about sigma star. Okay, there is nothing about consecutive jobs or anything. It's just that there are two adjacent jobs such that they form an inverted pair. Is this clear to everyone? So this is where I kind of messed up a bit last time. Okay, right? So I hope this is convincing to everyone now. Yeah. Okay, great. Good. So if that happens, so now, okay, so in our thought experiment, what is the story so far? The story so far has we have identified these two jobs which are sitting side by side, right? And now what I will do is now I will apply the exchange procedure. What is the exchange procedure? Well, I create a third schedule, which is sigma prime, where I just exchange the position of these two jobs. So पहले JM और JK हो रहा था. Abhi I have just swapped their places and I have produced a schedule which is JK and JM. Please again note that I am not trying to gradually take or whatever. I'm not trying to change sigma star to sigma or anything like that. All I'm doing is I am sort of exchanging these two jobs. Okay, so I'm correcting this inversion in some sense. Okay, I'm just doing this only one step. Okay, in my mind. Okay, so what does that give us? That gives us, so now I will just compare the completion time of these two schedules, right? And I think we were pretty convinced about last time that this exchange operation, it can only affect the completion time of these two jobs. It cannot affect the completion time of the jobs which are sitting here. Neither can it affect the completion time of the jobs that are scheduled after JK. Okay, so the only two jobs that are going to be affected are JM and JK. In particular, the completion time of JK is going to be decreased. The completion time of JM is going to be increased, okay, by this exchanging procedure. And now if I take the difference of completion time of sigma star and completion time of sigma prime and completion time of sigma star, then this is exactly the difference that is causing me. So the difference of completion time in the job JK times the weight of job K plus the difference in completion time of job M times the weight of job M. Okay. And now I think the thing should be pretty clear to everyone, because okay, we argued that okay, by how much will the completion time of job K decrease? Well, क्या हो रहा है, पहले JM इसके पहले था, अभी वो JM से पहले आ गया है. So the amount by which it will reduce is exactly equal to the length of job M, okay, times WK. And analogously, the amount by which the completion time of job M is going to increase is the length of job K times the weight of. Okay. But now remember, by our greedy choice, I know, what do I know? I know that WK over LK is bigger than WM over LM. So this is by greedy, right? Which means that this quantity is strictly less than 0. Yeah. Again, remember, I'm assuming the distinct case here. So that gives me a contradiction, right? Because I have assumed that sigma star was optimal, but hey, here I give you another schedule whose weighted completion time is actually better than sigma star, which performs better than sigma star, which clearly can't be the case. Okay, which means that sigma star has to look exactly like sigma. It cannot have this one inverted pair. Okay. So any question about this? That's the complete proof basically. Okay, under the assumption that these are distinct, of course. How do we know we have such an inversion? Very good. Yeah, so this is the most important point. So Harsh, the reason this is not an inversion is, how do you prove that there is an inversion? So assume there is no such inversion. Okay, so you assume that every two adjacent jobs always have increasing indices. Okay, so if you look at every two side-by-side jobs, right, in sigma star, then suppose they always have indices which is such that the second one is bigger than the first one. But then how does sigma star look like? What is the only way that sigma star can look like? Well, then sigma star is exactly equal to sigma. Okay, if every pair of jobs has this property that the first one has a lower index than the second one, then the only way that can happen is if you just arrange the numbers as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to n. But that is your sigma. That is not different from sigma, right? So if you assume that sigma star is different from sigma, then this has to happen. There is no other way. Okay. Yeah, they are contiguous, right? Yeah, I'm claiming that they're contiguous. So मान लो contiguous. So मान लो ऐसा कोई pair है नहीं that they're contiguous in sigma star and such that the first one has a higher index than the second one. Okay, it does not happen for any pair. It does not happen for any contiguous pair. But then the only arrangement in which this cannot happen is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to n. कोई भी और arrangement ले लो, उसमें एक तो ऐसा होना ही पड़ेगा. Yeah, just think about it. It's not very complicated. Okay, so you just need to think for 2 minutes. Yeah, because if they constantly go on increasing, then you cannot have this inverted pair. So conversely, yeah, if there is a different arrangement, then there has to be at some point where you have a switch between, you know, a higher index to a lower index. Okay, great. So I hope this is clear to everyone now. So let's just quickly modify this proof so that we handle the case where the sigma I, okay, this is Li, where the Wi over Li are not distinct. The structure is very similar, but there is a slight difference. The only problem here is that we cannot go via the contradiction route. Okay, we cannot prove any contradiction now because we, as you can imagine, that I cannot prove that this difference is less than 0. Okay, but we will do a slightly different structure here. What I will again do is I will start with sigma, and again I will take this sigma star, which if possible, let's say it's not equal to sigma. And now what I will show is that sigma is at least as good as sigma star. Okay, this is what I'm going to prove. Okay, Abhimanyu, can you please switch off your video? Thanks. Okay, so that's the structure. Okay, so I will not prove any contradiction this time. I will take the schedule which is sigma star, and I will gradually convert it to sigma, and in the process I will prove that we don't lose out on the quality of the solution. So the quality of solution at least remains as good as sigma star. Okay, and I think this is what somebody was suggesting last time, if I remember correctly. Okay, so how do I prove that? It's a very similar argument. Okay, it's almost the same thing, just with this one modification. Okay, so now again, everything else is the same, except that now the arrangement, I cannot claim that W1 over L1 is greater than W2 over L2, but rather it's greater than or equals to W2 over L2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so again I look at sigma star. Again I claim that there has to be an inverted pair. Okay, and again I do this exchange thing. Okay, so yahan tak ekdam same hai. Okay, the only problem now is that when I'm taking the difference between sigma prime and sigma star, then I cannot prove anymore that this difference is strictly less than 0, right? Because remember, the thing which we used last time was that Wk over Lk is greater than Wm over Lm. Okay, but now I do not have this property, because remember, these ratios are not all distinct necessarily. So it could very well be the fact that these two are equal. So now you cannot prove that you are improving the quality of your solution. Okay, but what you can prove still is that you are not decreasing the quality of your solution. The total weighted completion time does not go up compared to sigma star, right? In this modified schedule, it's either better or it stays the same. Okay, by this one exchange thing. Okay, is this clear to everyone? Why this is equal to now? Yeah, we cannot claim strictly less than 0. But now I cannot claim any contradiction, because remember, previously our contradiction hinged upon the fact that I'm producing a better schedule than sigma star. So now I cannot prove this contradiction anymore. Okay, but what can I do? What else can I do? Well, here is the final thing. Yeah, so this is what I was saying, right? So we proved that sigma prime is at least as good as sigma star, but we are really not done yet. We need to do one more step. So far what we have is, by exchanging one adjacent inverted pair, we have not worsened the solution, but we have done something extra. What we did was, we have corrected one inversion in sigma star. Okay, because remember, I'm exchanging this inverted pair, and this inverted pair, they're sitting side by side, and I'm just exchanging them. Okay, so now I have landed up in another schedule, which is sigma prime, right? But the point is, अब दो चीज हो सकता है, या तो सिग्मा प्राइम नाउ बिकम सिग्मा एग्जैक्टली, और अगर वो सिग्मा नहीं है, तो again I will find another consecutive pair such that they are inverted with respect to sigma. Okay, either of these two cases must happen, और कोई चांस ही नहीं है. या तो वो सिग्मा है जहां पे वो पूरा अरेंज्ड है 1 2 3 4 up to n, या तो फिर सिग्मा प्राइम looks different than sigma, in which case I will again find an inverted pair which is sitting side by side, and again I do the exchange, and again I can prove that I am not hampering the quality of my solution. Okay, but how many times will I do this? How many times can I carry out this procedure until I actually find sigma? So ये जो thought experiment हम कर रहे हैं of this exchanging, how many times can I carry out this exchange at the most? Is it possible that I have to keep doing it like infinitely many number of times? Is it n really? Okay, why is it n? Shouldn't it be n choose 2? Yeah, I think it should be n choose 2. I don't know, maybe you can optimize on this a bit, but I think, yeah, in the worst case, chalo, we are happy with the fact. So remember, this is not an algorithm that I'm giving. This is just a thought experiment. This is all happening in the proof itself. Okay, so what I claim is that this process will terminate after at most n over 2 exchanges. Okay, so yeah, so everyone understands what is going on, right? So I started with sigma star. I found this inverted pair which is sitting side by side. So I exchanged and I got sigma prime. Now, if sigma prime is not equal to sigma still, then I will again find an inverted pair. तो मैं उसको फिर से correct कर दूंगा and then I will find sigma prime prime और ऐसे चलते चले जाएंगे. But how many times can I do this in my mind? Well, I can only do this n choose 2 times. इससे ज़्यादा तो हो ही नहीं सकता. उसके बाद everything will just be sorted. But what does sorted mean? So at the end, you will actually have sigma. Okay? But in this entire procedure, you have not hampered the quality of your solution. That's the most important part. Okay? So you started with sigma star and you have arrived at sigma by this series of exchanges, and you have not hampered the quality of your solution, which means that sigma is as good as sigma star. Okay? That's the entire argument. Yeah, that's all I have written here. अब बताइए क्या क्वेश्चन है? Harsh, so the example you gave 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. Why 2, 3 is a, what do you mean? 2, 3 are contiguous and they are inverted, right? Sorry, which one? No, 3, 1, I mean. Oh, I see. Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. So did I again say something wrong? Okay, so Harsh is asking, so let's say 1, 2, 3 and no, wait. What? 3, 3, 1 is inverted, right? Hey, I'm correct. No, it's fine. Harsh? So 3, 1 is an inversion pair, right? So 3, 1 is inverted and they are they are an inverted pair and they are contiguous. So you just exchange 3 and 1. Yeah, no, this is fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, great. So any more questions about this thing? Good. So because now I'm going to move on to the next problem. Perfect. All right. So now today we will discuss another problem, and I don't know, maybe this one and hopefully another one after this. So again, you know, the way I have selected these problems are, I mean, there are quite a few problems in the world which you can solve using greedy. I mean, of course, we will not go through all of them, but my idea is to show you these different flavors of proofs that you use in order to prove optimality of your greedy algorithm, right? Okay, so the next problem that we are going to talk about is what we call, it belongs to the class of partitioning problems. Okay, but the way I will describe it is in the form of scheduling lectures. Okay, so what is the lecture scheduling problem? Well, it's I think everyone knows about this issue, right? So let's say we have lectures which span from different time points to different time points throughout the day. So I'm showing you only a snapshot of, let's say, 4 lectures. And now I have to decide on classrooms in order to be allotted to each of these lectures. Now, of course, as we all understand that I cannot assign the same classroom to 2 lectures if they overlap with each other. Yeah. So I have to make sure that the way I'm doing this room allocation, they should not give rise to a conflict. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि एक lecture के बीच में दूसरा instructor आ गया. Yeah. Okay, good. So now the question we will ask is that how many rooms are really necessary? What is the minimum number of room that I need in order to schedule all the lectures without any conflict? Okay. Again, I am going to make one simplifying assumption, which is not actually an assumption. It's very necessary for everything to work out in this case. Okay. I will not, I cannot prove what I want to prove if I don't make that assumption. But as you will realize, this assumption is not a very big deal. Okay. So the assumption I'm going to make is that these intervals, so the lectures are open intervals. So assumption is lectures are open intervals. Okay, इसका मतलब बस यही है कि when I'm saying that some lecture is ending at 11 o'clock, assume that it ends at 10:59. Okay, and the next one starts at 11. So there is really a tiny difference between this ending point of a lecture and the starting point of the next lecture. Okay, so there is no case that, you know, the starting point of a lecture and the ending point of another lecture are exactly coinciding. Yeah, because remember, at the end of the day, mathematically these are nothing but intervals on the real number line. So I'm just assuming that they are open intervals. Okay, so एक side close है, दूसरे side open है. ठीक है? Any doubt about this assumption? Yeah. And I think even in practical cases, you can make this assumption. You can always ask the previous instructor to leave 1 minute before the next one. Okay, good. So okay, so what is a possible solution? So one possible solution is I allocate 3 different rooms. Okay, so I allocate the green room to room A, room number A to the first one, blue to, let's say, these two, and red to this one. Okay, so is this the best that I can do? Clearly not, right? So I can do better. I can actually schedule all these lectures using only 2 classrooms. That's very clear. Yeah, so I can simply, so ye thoda sa wastage hai. I don't need a third classroom for scheduling these two, right? What I can do is I can always lift this blue guy to this one. Yeah, so I allocate these two to room A and these two to room B. So in this case, I can actually do away with 2 classrooms. Okay. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve now. So of course, now, you know, you are not given only 4 that you can take a look at it and say that, okay, just allocate it this way. Suppose you have hundreds of lectures, you are organizing a conference and you want to schedule, or even like our semester room allocation, right? So what would be the right algorithm if you have this data, when it starts and when it ends? What should be the right algorithm so that I can allocate everybody using as few rooms as possible and without any conflict? And the difference of conflict, I think, is clear to everyone, that I cannot give the same room to 2 lectures which are intersecting in this picture, yeah, which are strictly intersecting. So that is not allowed. Okay, great. So before I go on to the problem, let me actually tell you that this is actually a special case of a very, very well-known problem in graphs, which is known as the graph coloring problem. Okay, what is the graph coloring problem? Well, you have a graph, and yeah, a graph has vertices and edges. So what I would, your task would be to give a color to every vertex of the graph, okay, in a way that there is no conflict. And what is a conflict? Well, if I look at any edge, then the adjacent vertices should not have the same color. Okay, that is the graph coloring problem. Okay. And again, the question I will ask is, what is the fewest possible colors that you need to use so that you can arrive at a conflict-free coloring of your whole graph? Okay. Yeah. So Chintan is asking similar to bipartite. So yeah, you can do bipartite coloring, but the point is that any bipartite graph can be colored using 2 colors, but that's not true in general. So the question I'm asking here is on general graphs. Okay. So now you can imagine that this lecture scheduling problem that we are trying to solve, it's nothing but a very special case of the graph coloring problem. Why is that? What are the vertices and the edges? So how do you reduce the lecture scheduling problem to this graph coloring problem? So what are the vertices now, and what are the edges in your graph? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. So clearly the vertices would be the lectures. Okay, so the vertices would be the lectures. What are the edges really? When should I put? Very nice. Okay, so I will put an edge between two vertices or two lectures if there is an overlap. So an edge indicates an overlap. Okay, and now I can ask the same question. What is the fewest possible number of colors that you need in order to produce a conflict-free coloring of this graph? ठीक है? Clear होगा सबको? Right? Okay, great. So in this case, this is a possible coloring of your graph. So in this example that I'm showing, so I'm using 3 colors. Can I color this graph using 2 colors? Is a solution possible if I just use 2 colors for this particular graph? Yeah, no. Okay, and the easiest way to see it that, well, you have triangles in your graph. If you have triangles in your graph, right? So what I mean by a triangle is a cycle that has 3 edges, right? So if there is a triangle in your graph, then clearly you need 3 colors on the end points of your triangle. So it's impossible to color this graph using 2 colors. Okay, in fact, if your graph has an odd cycle, then you cannot use 2 colors to color them. Okay, why do I say that? So does anyone know why did I mention odd cycle? What is special? So the claim I am making is that if there is odd cycle in your graph, right, then I cannot color that graph using 2 colors. Okay, and the reason is that if your graph has an odd cycle, then it's not a bipartite graph. And if it's not a bipartite graph, then you cannot color it using 2 colors. So there's an if and only if relationship. So a graph is bipartite only if and only if you can color it using 2 colors. And that's very intuitive, right? So in bipartite graphs, you have these 2 partitions and you can give them 2 different colors, and that's enough. But this is also if and only if. If you can produce a 2 coloring, then you can claim that this is a bipartite graph clearly. So if there is an odd cycle, that means that this graph is not bipartite, so you cannot use 2 colors, you need more. And triangle is a special case of an odd cycle. Okay, good. So let's not digress too much. So let me just tell you that in general, it's a very, very hard problem to solve. Very, very hard on general graphs. Okay, so it's a completely entire subject in itself. People have spent years and years on just researching on graph coloring, but turns out that in some special cases we can actually solve this problem efficiently. One special case already which Chintan had pointed out is the case of bipartite graphs. If the graph is bipartite, then I can just run BFS, and if it's bipartite, I can just color it using 2 colors. Yeah, that's a linear time algorithm. It turns out that in this case also, we would be able to find an efficient algorithm which finds the optimal number of colors. Okay, right? Okay. So yeah, in this very special case where the vertices are intervals and the edges indicate overlaps, we will see that we can actually color it very easily using a greedy algorithm, and we can prove that this is always optimal. Okay, chalo, okay. So let's come back to our lecture scheduling from graph coloring. Okay, so here is a simple greedy algorithm that I'm giving you. So what is the greedy algorithm? So first, I will sort the lectures, and this is kind of important. I will sort the lectures left to right by their starting times. Okay, so this is very important. So I'm just sorting the lectures according to the time when they are starting. Okay, and I'm just now scanning the lectures from left to right. Okay, तो पहला वाला लिया, दूसरा वाला लेंगे, तीसरा वाला लेंगे, ऐसे चलते चले जाएंगे. ठीक है, तो हम क्या करेंगे? So I will initialize a counter which is k, that is equal to 1. So this counter is supposed to count the total number of colors that I have used at any point in my algorithm. ठीक है, तो हर एक iteration में I will give my lecture some color which is some which is allocating some classroom essentially. So this K is going to keep a count of how many I have used so far, right? So I'll initialize it with 1. Now, when I come to a specific lecture, I will check the following. So suppose this is the specific lecture. And of course, there would be some guys which I have already given some color. Okay, so these guys I have already allocated some color. And now suppose I am looking at this lecture, which is I. So first, what I will check is the following, that jitne colors abhi tak use hua hai, so the current K colors, can I allocate any of these colors to the current interval or not? Okay, so I will be very conservative. I don't want to use a color unnecessarily. So I will just check my current palette. So abhi tak I have used some colors between 1 and K. Okay, so I will check that. If I can give any of that color to this guy, then I will just give it to it. Okay, and how do I check that? Well, simply I have to check whether it's conflicting with any of the previous, any of the previous lectures which I have already colored. Okay, forget about implementation now. In fact, that I will give you as an exercise. Okay, just think of the algorithm. All this is possible, and intuitively this should be possible in at least polynomial time. Okay, we will see how to implement this. We will not see, it will be an exercise. So okay, but is the algorithm clear what I am doing? So when I'm looking at lecture I am just trying to see if I can allocate any color, any of the colors which I have used so far. Okay, अगर होता है तो अच्छी बात है, दे देंगे उसको. नहीं होता है, so then I increment my color palette. I use an additional color. Okay, so which is indicated by the K equals to K plus 1. Yeah, and I give this, and I give this new color to my lecture I. Okay, right? So let's quickly see an example. I'm sure this is a very simple algorithm, so I think everyone will get it immediately, right? Okay, so suppose I'm taking a slightly more complicated example than the last one. So first you have sorted the intervals from left to right. So the first interval that you will look at is this one. Yeah, and then what you will do is, you will suppose you gave the green color to this guy. Okay, so what is the next one that I'm going to see? The next one I'm going to see is this long interval, right? Because remember, I'm sorting by starting time. This is very important. Okay, so of course now I cannot give green to this guy because it has an overlap with the green one. So I give a new color, so that's blue. Yeah, so then I move on to the next small one. But now the interesting point is, remember I have used green and blue, but I can clearly use green on this one as well. Yeah, there is no reason that I have to use another color. I can actually use green. Okay, I cannot use blue because it has an overlap with blue, but I can clearly use a green. So चलो उसको green दे देते हैं. ठीक है. उसके बाद I come to this fourth one. Okay, but now the problem is it has an overlap with both the green and the blue. Okay, so now clearly I have to give it a new color, and that color is let's say red. Okay, so and again the final one, I clearly can see that I can give it the green color. Remember, I could have also given it blue. That's not a problem. So when you check your existing palette, you can pick any color from your palette which is not conflicting. Okay, it doesn't matter. You can choose the minimum one, you can whatever, you can use your own scheme in order to carry out this procedure. Okay. Ha, Mitakshi, that's a great question. That will come into play when we do the proof. Okay, when we will prove that this is optimal, you will see that I need this assumption. Okay. Right. Okay. So one exercise that I will give you to think about is implement this. Implement in order n log n. Okay. So you might need some additional data structures for this. Just try it out. Yeah, it's an interesting exercise. So, or maybe you don't need any data structure. Okay, so Alok is asking, could the answer also just be the maximum? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Alok, so that's the proof, right? Yeah. So yeah, let's come to that. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so is the algorithm clear to everybody? Absolutely clear, no question at all. Yeah, so then we will move on to the proof. Okay. Okay, great. So good. So how do I prove this claim? Okay. Now the point is, so let's before so the proof technique that again which I'm going to introduce through this is that we will say that, okay, think about the optimal solution. Okay, so what we will say is that there is a certain quantity, yeah, and the optimal solution cannot be less than this quantity. Okay, आप कुछ भी कर लो, कोई भी दुनिया का स्मार्टेस्ट एल्गोरिथम लगा लो, एक्सपोनेंशियल टाइम जो भी कर लो, we have to claim that your optimal solution cannot be less than this quantity. So this is also what we call a lower bound on the optimal. Okay, so we will try to figure out a lower bound on the optimal solution, जो भी हमारा optimal है. Okay, now let's ask, and you will see it's very easy to figure out the lower bound in this case, right? So let's ask ourselves this question. So ये जो example है, इसमें our algorithm have used 3 colors, right? Is it possible to color this using 2 colors? Can there be a solution to this particular example which uses 2 colors only? And if not, how do you convince me that this is not possible? Why is this not possible? Yeah, this is no. Very good, because I can clearly see that. So let's just come to the colorless picture now. So there is a point in this entire arrangement where 3 of the intervals are overlapping, and it's exactly this point. Okay, ये जो तीनों interval है, all these 3 intervals are overlapping with each other, and they are strictly overlapping with each other, right? So I clearly cannot have any solution which can do away with using only 2 colors, क्योंकि इस time point के लिए मेरे को 3 room तो चाहिए ही चाहिए, क्योंकि all these 3 are intersecting at this particular point in some sense. Okay, and this is what leads us to a formal definition of a lower bound for the optimal solution in this case, which is defined as the depth of an arrangement. Okay, so when I say arrangement, it's nothing but this set of intervals, right? So you have a line and you have intervals on the line, and the depth of such an arrangement, so given some open intervals, what is the depth? Is the maximum number of intervals that contain a specific time point. So in this case, the depth of the arrangement is 3. Okay, because there is a time point which contains 3 examples 3 intervals completely. Okay, so that's the depth. And now the key observation is that opt will need at least depth many number of rooms. Opt cannot do away with less than depth number of rooms. ठीक है, तो इतना तो clear हो गया. Now all I need to convince you is that our greedy algorithm cannot be using a room, cannot be using more than depth many number of rooms. Okay, so if the depth of an instance is d, then I will claim that the greedy algorithm will use exactly d number of rooms. Okay, it cannot clearly use less than d because that's impossible, but it will not use more than d. Okay, so that will complete the proof. So everyone clear about the the direction which we're taking, right? So this technique is often called like arguing using structure of the optimal solution. Okay, this is the second technique that we are seeing. Okay, so let's finish the proof. So as usual, assume that this is not true. Okay, so what is the thing that I'm trying to prove? I'm trying to prove that greedy uses only d many classrooms, where d is the depth of my arrangement. Okay, so suppose this is not true, and suppose greedy uses d plus 1 rooms. Okay, and remember, so now remember our algorithm. So what is our algorithm doing? So every time I see an interval, I'm trying to allocate it one color. So there must have been one time point in my algorithm where I'm allocating the color d plus 1 to the interval I. Okay. So let's see this picture. So suppose this red guy is my interval I. Yeah. And I am somehow giving it the color d plus 1. Let me use white actually. Yeah. So I'm using the color d plus 1. Okay. But why did I? So now I ask myself the question, why did I use the d plus 1th color? Yeah. The reason I might have used the d plus 1th color is because all the d colors that have been used so far, they are somehow conflicting with this red interval. Okay. So this is very clear. Otherwise, why would I go to d plus 1th one? I will use one of the one से d तक जो भी है उसको use कर लेंगे. d plus 1 तक क्यों जाएंगे नहीं तो? तो d plus 1 तक गया इसका मतलब है कि there must have been conflicts with each and every of the d colors, right? So this red interval is conflicting with intervals which have already exhausted all the colors from 1 to d. Okay. So now let's look at the intervals जिनको मैंने 1 से d तक color already दे दिया. So what is the essential property of these intervals? What can I say about these intervals in terms of starting time? So if I appeal to my algorithm now, what is the property that I can claim? So with respect to the red interval, how does the starting point of all these conflicting intervals look like? Okay, confused? Very good, very good. Okay, so the point is that the starting point of this ith interval, okay, which I'm going to color, that is strictly less than the ending time of all these conflicting intervals. Okay, right? Why? Because the starting point of all these conflicting intervals have to happen on strictly on the left of SI. Yeah, that's by our algorithm, because I'm sweeping from left to right. Yeah, and now because they are all conflicting with the red one, right? That means that their ending points have to actually be strictly bigger than SI. Okay, but what does that mean? That means that there exists a time point which is, let's say, SI. मान लो SI नहीं है, SI से थोड़ा सा ज्यादा है, something like SI plus epsilon. Okay, so there exists a time point when there are d plus 1 intervals which are overlapping. Overlap. Okay, that's our conclusion. Again, let's go through the whole argument. So we are assuming that, suppose if possible, the greedy algorithm uses more than d number of colors, right? So I am looking at the time point and looking at the iteration where I am allocating the d plus 1th color to some interval, right? So let's say this is the red interval. Now I am asking myself the following question. Why did I use the d plus 1th color? Well, clearly I use the d plus 1th color because this red guy is actually conflicting with d other guys which are on its left, all of which have starting point strictly to the left of the starting point of the red guy. But agar unka sabka starting point is on the left and they are strictly overlapping with the red guy, iska matlab hai ki they also mutually have to overlap at some point. And in particular, which is that point? That point is the starting point of the red guy, usse thoda sa, maybe thoda sa zyada मान लीजिए. Okay. Okay. Is this clear? But that clearly means that the depth of my arrangement is d plus 1, at least. Okay. So this implies that depth is greater than equals to d plus 1, which is a contradiction. Yeah, because what we proved previously is that you know, तो उसका मतलब है कि optimal को भी d plus 1 चाहिए. So the optimal cannot be d. Yes, so that's a contradiction. Yeah. No, not opt actually. What we are proving here is that okay, the depth is actually D, but the contradiction which we have arrived at is that the depth is actually not D, it's D+1, which in itself is a contradiction. Okay. Yeah, is it clear to everyone? Right. Okay, and I think there was a question that why do we need open intervals here? Yeah, the small reason here is that, you know, if you don't consider open intervals, then you cannot do this proof. The point is, if they, so suppose ye jo pehle D intervals hai, if they exactly end at, so I'm claiming that they either end at something like SI minus epsilon, or they end at SI plus epsilon. If they end exactly at SI, and this guy starts at SI, then I cannot count them as overlap, right? And then I will not be able to do this proof anymore. Okay, I think Mitakshi has asked this question, so that's the reason that I'm assuming this. Yeah. So if they exactly end at SI, all of these, then I cannot claim that you know, the depth is D+1 or something, because yeah, I mean, they are beginning at and starting at the same point. So you can always use another. You can always use the same room in this case, right? Shruti, that's exactly correct. So Shruti is asking, when we were showing lecture I needs a color, we need to check it with all lectures before it. Before matlab before in terms of the starting time, because that's our algorithm. So I'm sweeping from left to right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So this naive implementation can be done in n square, but what I asked you to do is in n log n. So I'm claiming that this is possible to be done in n log n with somewhat clever data structuring. Okay, so that's what I asked you to think about. Yeah, I think n square is pretty straightforward. Okay, any more question? So I think we are done with this problem. If there are no more questions. Okay. By the way, you can also prove this by sorting the intervals in descending order of ending times and doing the same thing. If you go from right to left, it's the same argument. Okay. So you can also sort them in descending order and just go in the other direction. That is also going to work. What is not going to work is if you order them in ascending order of ending time and try to apply the same algorithm. Yeah. So I'm not going to show you the example here. I think it's a bit fun. Maybe I will put it in the tutorial. Yeah. And the reason I'm not showing it here, because you know, it really does not add to the intuition. It's more of playing with some numbers and stuff, but it's a nice little puzzle to work out. Okay. So everyone understands. So I'm saying that if you arrange the intervals in ascending order of ending time and try to apply the same algorithm, then you will see that there is an instance where this algorithm will not be optimal. Okay. So maybe I'll put this in the tutorial. Okay, but maybe you can try to think about it. Okay. Okay. So if there are no further questions on this one, then let me start. So I didn't estimate that I will finish. So let me start with the next problem that I want to talk about, and let's see if maybe we can finish the proof actually. Okay, because this is a problem that you have already seen in your quiz, but I will define a slightly easier version of this problem. Okay, so this is maximum number of non-overlapping intervals. Okay, so remember in your quiz you were given this question that let's say you are planning to do some business in some events, and you know the start and ending times of these events. So, and you also know the profit that you are going to gain from each of these events, right? So how do you pick the optimal set of events? That was your quiz 3 question, right? So we are taking exactly the same problem, but we don't have the profits now. So I'm trying to just maximize the number of events that I can attend. Okay, this is also a very valid thing, right? So you, let's say you are going to a conference, and again you want to attend as many talks as possible, but talks can be overlapping. So how do you choose the, how do you choose in a specific way so that you attend the maximum number of talks as possible? Okay, Rohit has a question about the coloring thing. Aren't we checking for every lecture? So how ascending of n times gives wrong answer? Or why do we even require sorting it? Okay, in the proof, Rohit, we have used very crucially that they are sorted, right? Otherwise, you cannot prove that there exists this time point where d+1 intervals are conflicting. Yeah. So here we are crucially using the fact that you are going in the sorted order of starting time. Otherwise, this proof just breaks down. Yeah. Is this clear now? Yeah. So the contradiction which we arrived at, this d+1 thing, it crucially, no, it doesn't matter. The checking doesn't matter, right? What matters is that you have to prove that you are not using more than depth many number of colors. But if you keep on picking the intervals arbitrary in an arbitrary order and try to give it a color, then you might end up with many more colors. Yeah, so this is the thing which I asked you to figure out, right? So you cannot use arbitrary ordering. Okay. You can check. I mean, the checking is not important here, but this ordering, if you do the wrong ordering, then you will actually end up using more colors than is necessary. Yeah. And the reason being is that here you are doing the right thing because specifically of this fact that when you are using the d+1th color, it means that you need d+1th color. Your solution needs d+1 at least. But for an arbitrary order, you cannot make this claim. Okay. What do you mean max? No, I don't. Just think about it. I think you need to understand the algorithm a bit more. Okay, or we can take it after the lecture. Okay. 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 So what is this question again? So remember, I have these intervals, right? Yeah. So something like that. And everybody has a start and end time. So this is S1, E1. This is S2, E2. S3, 3. S4, E4. S5, 5. Okay. So now the goal is to pick max number of non-overlapping intervals. Okay. So is the problem clear to everyone? Okay. Now, what we are going to see is that in this case, the greedy algorithm actually works. Okay. Which is not the case if you have profits. So there you really require a dynamic programming as you have done in your quiz. But if I don't have profits and I'm just looking to maximize the number of intervals that I will pick, then I can actually get away with a very specific greedy algorithm. Okay. Now again, let me give you first a list of what doesn't work. Okay. So what greedy choice doesn't work? Choice doesn't work. No, Gaurav, so there is no profit here, right? This is a bit important. So all the profits are one here. So there is no profit anymore. I'm just trying to maximize the number of intervals that I'm choosing. Yeah, there is no notion of a profit anymore. Yeah, but max profit anyway will not work in that, in the other case. Okay. So what is, okay, so what are the natural candidates for a greedy algorithm? So we will take inspiration from our previous problem, right? So suppose you say that, okay, you order again. So order by start times, right? And keep and pick if no conflict. Okay. Right? So in this example, what will you do? Well, you have ordered, let's say, everything by the starting time. So first you will pick S1, E1. Yeah. Next, you will look at S2, E2. You will not pick it. Why? Because there is a conflict with S1, S1, E1. Then you will move on to, I guess, S4, E4. Yeah. Oh, that you might pick, right? Because there is no conflict with S1, E1. So this you have picked. Then you will move on to, let's say, S3, E3. So there is no conflict. There is a conflict. Yeah. So you cannot pick it. Then you move to S5, E5. Again, there is a conflict. So you cannot prove. So you cannot pick it. Yeah. So this you cannot do. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, your algorithm will just produce is S1, E1 and S4, E4. These two intervals, right? And clearly they are non-overlapping. So this is a perfectly valid algorithm. Yeah. But it turns out that this is not good. Yeah. So can anyone tell me a quick example of why this is not good? So everyone clear about the algorithm, right? So I am sweeping from left to right by ordering according to the start times, and I'm picking, I'm picking the interval if there is no conflict with the existing things which you have picked. Okay, with the existing things, with the existing set. Very good. Okay. Yeah. So that is exactly. Yeah. So that is the canonical example of where ordering by start time fails. Okay. So suppose you have a very long interval. Yeah. Which starts before anyone else and it ends after anybody else has ended. And then you have chotu intervals, several of them, right? All of these guys. Yeah. But now going by the starting time is a disaster, because what you will end up picking is only this long interval, whereas you have missed all of these chota intervals which you should have picked ideally. Okay, so that's clearly a bad example for. But there are a few more sophisticated ideas which are also going to fail. So for example, greedy by, let's say, shortest interval first. Why not? Shortest interval first. Yeah. Why not? That's also a natural candidate. And the reason, picking the shortest interval first is intuitive is because if the interval is short, then chances are high that it will not, it cannot conflict with too many of the things. So जैसे यहाँ पे ये example में क्या हो रहा है? Because this interval is very long, it's spanning, sort of the entire timeline. That is why it's actually killing all the small intervals. But if we go by the shortest first, then at least in this example, I don't have an issue. Yes, but turns out that this is also not so good. Okay, so this will also take a bit of thinking. It's not as easy as this one, which is why, yeah, right, exactly. Okay, so just work it out. It's good to work out these things sometimes. Yeah. So there is another idea which is even more sophisticated, and the bad example here is a bit tricky to find, which is order according to let's say non-decreasing number of conflicts. Okay. Okay. So what I will do is I will do a pre-processing on my entire thing. So I will go over the entire set, and I will sort them. But what I'm sorting them on? Well, I'm checking how many intervals. So एक interval मैं देख रहा हूँ, and I'm checking how many other intervals does it overlap with. Okay, so I'm sorting according to this measure. So हर एक interval के लिए एक number मिलेगा मुझे. So let's say the interval 1 conflicts with, so in this example, if I see, so S1E1 conflicts with only one interval, right? So इसके पीछे मैं एक लिख दूंगा, right? Interval 2 that conflicts with I guess 1, 2, 3 guys, so इसमें 3 लिख दूंगा. Similarly, interval 3 जो है that is also conflicting with 3, so and so on and so forth. Okay, and now I sort according to this number, and I keep picking again, maintaining the fact that all which I have already picked और जो मैं अभी pick करने जा रहा हूँ, they should not conflict with each other. That I always have to keep in mind, because otherwise my solution is not a valid solution. Okay, it turns out that even that is a bad algorithm. Okay, bad in the sense that it will not give you the optimal solution all the time. But again, the example is slightly non-trivial to figure out. Okay, and I will not pretend that I can do that in 2 minutes. So, but I leave it up to you to think. We will take this up in the tutorials. Okay. Okay, so we know that this does not work. So let me finally give you what can work. So can anyone guess what is going to work? In fact, a very simple idea is going to work here. You don't have to prove, but exactly. So sorting by n times is actually what the right answer is. Okay. So correct greedy algorithm is, okay, sort the intervals by increasing n time. Increasing n times. Okay, and now for I equals to 1 to n, pick I if I does not conflict with any of the already picked. Okay, so that's your algorithm. Yeah, what is the runtime of this, or how do you, what is the best runtime that you can do here? Okay. Okay, Alok is saying n log n. Alok, how do you implement this in n log n? Okay, so maybe I will do the proof next time. So let me now allow unmuting, and can anyone tell me how do you do this in n log n? Heap. Do we need heap here? So let's think about it for 5 minutes. Okay, let's think for 5 minutes. No, we don't need binary search. थोड़ा सा सोच लीजिए. So the algorithm is clear, right? And of course, the sorting will just take n log n. तो n log n से ज़्यादा तो हम नहीं कर सकते. n log n तो हमारा चला जाएगा sorting में. But now, when you are scanning from left to right for a particular interval, you have to decide whether you want to add it or not. तो इसको हम कैसे करेंगे? अरे कुछ नहीं चाहिए सेट्स वेट वगैरह, थोड़ा सा सोच लो. Yeah, don't bring out your guns before you really need them. Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. Okay, so here is the idea, right? So what I guess a couple of people have suggested. So the question is, how would you implement this in n log n time? Okay, so first for sorting, you need n log n. You need order n log n. Now, so keep track of the last interval added. Okay, now check if s of I is greater than, let's say the last interval is j. Okay. Sorry, what was that? Oh, Soham, that we did not prove yet, right? So that we will do next time. Yeah, I didn't prove yet that sorting by n time will always give you the optimal answer. So today we are just discussing the implementation, right? That needs a proof. Yeah. Okay. So the implementation is the following, that you keep track of the last interval that you have added to your list. Okay. And now when you are at a specific interval, you have to decide whether you want to add this to your existing set or not. But for that, all you need to check is whether the starting time of this interval is bigger than the ending time of the last interval that was added. Okay, so j is the last added interval. Because agar ye true nahi hai, so clearly you cannot sort of add this guy. Yeah, it's an if and only if. You will add it if this is true. You will not add it if this is not true. Okay, so that's the algorithm, and this you can just do in linear time. Okay, so that's the n log n implementation. Okay, great. So what we are not discussing today is why this algorithm is optimal. It takes like 5 minutes, but I think we have done quite a bit today. So let's not tax ourselves with that. Yeah, Chintan, but why do you need a priority queue is the question. Like you just need a linear time scan, right? I'm not saying it can be done in many ways, but do you really need a priority queue here is my question. I mean, for sorting, you need, or are you saying you don't need to sort as well? Yeah, that's also possible. Maybe, okay, yeah, then that's true. If you don't want to sort a priori, then perhaps a priority queue. Yeah, clearly, yeah. Okay, not clearly, but yeah, probably. Yeah, the previous question, Kevin, yeah, you need to use some data structure, but yeah, just let the others figure out, okay? So, yeah, I want everyone to think of the implementation of the coloring algorithm. Yeah, it can be done in nlogn. So just think of it. Okay, so I'm not going to do the proof today. So next class, I'm going to show you the proof of this, and I'm going to show you another problem which uses greedy algorithm. But there we will see a slightly different flavor. So what we will see is that there we will not be able to prove that the greedy algorithm is always optimal. But what we can prove that the greedy algorithm will not be too bad compared to the optimal. Okay, so that is sometimes known as approximation algorithms. Okay, and we will see just an example. Yeah, that sometimes, okay, you cannot do things optimally, but you can prove that you can do things near optimally. So that's what we are going to do next time. Okay, so in the remaining, so let me stop the recording now.